Reynaldo López returns to the rotation and has a huge game against the Philadelphia Phillies with 10 strikeouts. Whit Merrifield gets some revenge against his old team, and Marzell Ozuna, as always, comes through with a big hit. We'll discuss that and also the Braves' issues with hitting with runners in scoring position this year. We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop of All. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button if you already have so that others can find us here at Locked On Braves. And leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know if you're an everydayer here at Locked On Braves. If you're listening on the audio version, you can do me a favor by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It does help out the show a ton whenever you do that. And again, thank you for all your support here at Locked On Braves, making us your first listen of each and every day. On today's episode, we'll recap the Braves' 3-1 win over the Phillies. A great game. I had fun watching the Atlanta Braves. I know it's obviously more fun when they win the game, but I just thought it was a well-played game all around. We'll break down everything. Lopez's big outing, the pitching staff in general, Grant Holmes, what he was able to do in his new role with this Braves pitching staff. Also, Marzell Ozuna, Whit Merrifield had a big game. We'll discuss that. We'll also get into the Braves' issues in clutch situations this year. That's been a huge problem for them. So we'll take a look at the stats there and then get you set up for Wednesday's game where Max Fried's looking to have a bounce-back outing. This episode of Locked On Braves is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Well, the Braves kicked off a 3-game set with the Phillies on Tuesday night, entering this game 7 games back in the NL East. And I told you coming in, you pretty much have to sweep this series and win the 4-game series in Philadelphia. And while I'm not betting that's going to happen, one thing I don't bet, but either way, I would not bet that even if it were a bet over on FanDuel. But if you're going to do it, the best way and the only way to do it is to win game 1 of the series. And the Braves got that done with a 3-1 victory on Tuesday night. And it was all because of the pitching staff. Obviously not all. You got to score some runs, but a big chunk of that is due to just some great pitching. Reynaldo López returning from injury, went 5 innings, gave up 5 hits, 1 walk, just 1 earned run, and 10 strikeouts. Just an unbelievable start for Reynaldo López coming back from injury. I thought he was excellent in this one. I thought really all of his pitches looked really, really good, especially for his first start back. He had that tune-up in Gwinnett where wasn't the greatest stat line, but that's why you can't always look at stat lines at the minor league level and draw much from that. He threw 71 pitches in this one, gets up to 90. He threw 90 pitches in this one, 60 of those for strikes. He threw 90 pitches. The Phillies swung at 47 of them, and they whiffed on 18 of those 47 swings. That's a 38% whiff rate. I mean, he just had them in all kinds of trouble, including Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, who he struck out both of those guys 3 times each. So just an amazing game for Reynaldo López coming back. And look, he was at 79 pitches after 4 innings, after a long 4th inning where he did give up a run, and the Phillies were able to tie things back up. I thought he might be done after that inning, considering, he hasn't pitched in a while. The top of the lineup was coming back up again. He was in the upper 70s in pitches and hadn't really been stretched back out that far yet. But credit to Brian Snitker, who stuck with him. And look, maybe you thought that was an easy decision. You had Grant Holmes up, so I think it was at least in Brian Snitker's mind. But, you send him back out there for that next inning. The coaching staff, I guess I should say. You send him back out there for that next inning, and maybe it's batter by batter, and you have Holmes ready to go. But he just dominated the top of the Phillies lineup tonight, whether it was Schwarber and Harper, as we talked about, but Trey Turner as well. We know how much he kills the Braves, so being able to keep him off the base pass was really great job by López in this pitching staff. So very encouraging stuff for López, who's had an outstanding year overall. So to see him come back and pitch that way and his stuff just looked really crisp. Look, he only threw 3 changeups in this. He got 2 whiffs on 3 changeups that he threw total. Curveball, he had a ton of whiffs on that. He obviously always has a lot of whiffs on that slider. Fastball velocity, he was able to get up to 98, especially in those last innings when he needed it and knew he was near the end of his rope. So, I mean, this looked like the Reynaldo López we saw earlier in the year. So that is very encouraging for the rest of the way as he looked healthy. His stuff looked good. So that's very encouraging for this Braves team. Now, the rest of the pitching staff did an amazing job as well. Grant Holmes, he does come into the game after Lopez exits after a great fifth inning. Holmes comes in and was really good for 2 scoreless innings as well. And this is huge for the trust that you have in Grant Holmes. Look, you lose A.J. Minter in this bullpen for the rest of the year. He was put on the 60-day injured list on Tuesday. But Grant Holmes suddenly becomes a big piece of this bullpen. And look, I don't know what the future holds for Grant Holmes. I think there could potentially be something there for him as a starter, and maybe they look more into that in the offseason and into the beginning of next year. But for the rest of this season, he becomes a big piece of this bullpen. We talked about it on the postcast, me and Grant McCauley over in Locked On Sports Atlanta and in your Locked On Braves podcast feed if you haven't given that a listen. But suddenly you have 2 guys in Grant Holmes and Dylan Lee who come in kind of that pivotal spot in the 6th, 7th inning to bridge that gap. Guys who can give you multiple innings, guys who you trust now. I mean, I think we trust Grant Holmes at this point. And I apologize. I was not familiar with your game, Grant Holmes, but you have earned this opportunity. You have looked really, really good. And now you have another arm in this bullpen that I think you can trust. It's a spot where I think you've been going to Jesse Chavez a lot. And while I hate to say it, I think the magic dust or whatever was running out on Jesse Chavez, but now you insert a guy in Grant Holmes who can bridge that gap. If Lopez can only get you 5 innings, if Schwellenbach, they need to cap him at 5 innings, Grant Holmes, Dylan Lee suddenly become important guys to bridge things to the back end of the game that you trust that can get it there with a lead or either keep your team in the game until you get to those back end guys and Pierce Johnson, Joe Jimenez, and Marzell Iglesias, who those last 2, they were great on this night as well. So this pitching staff, look, this is the formula for the Braves. This is not going to be the juggernaut offense that it was last year. If the Braves are going to do anything in 2024, it's going to be because of dominant pitching, and that's exactly what we saw on Tuesday night. Now, on the offensive side of things, look, you're facing Zach Wheeler, who's the second best pitcher in the National League this year behind Chris Sale. He is really, really good. You already have a beat-up lineup. You're coming off the loss of Austin Riley, so you got to imagine emotions are a little down at the moment, and you have to lower your expectations in a start like this of what you might get from the offense. But to get 2 runs off of him, to get him out of there after 6 innings and drive up his pitch count to 97, that feels like a successful night to me from this Braves offense, especially with that lineup. Jorge Soler still not back. So I thought it was a successful night overall against Wheeler, even though it's not the best line in the world against him. You get him for a couple of runs, you knock him out after 6 innings, and you take a chance on that Phillies bullpen that has not been as great here lately. And then you also face, a couple of their better relievers in Kirkring and Alvarado. I know they haven't been great as of late, and Alvarado couldn't find the strike zone tonight, but those are 2 guys with good stuff. It wasn't necessarily a bunch of hits that they were getting off Alvarado. He just couldn't throw strikes. Now, the other part of the offense in this one, Whit Merrifield had his revenge game against his former team in the Phillies. He had a triple on just a great swing against Zach Wheeler. He gets ahead 3-0. Wheeler gets it back 3-2. He dots a fastball away, and Whit stays back on it and just drives it the other way down the line for a triple, gets a good carom off that wall and gets a triple. Michael Harris able to bring him in for the Braves to take an early lead. That was a great at bat, got a double, and later got a walk in the game as well. So just an outstanding game from Whit Merrifield, who's been fantastic for this Braves team since taking over for Ozzie Albies. So really love what we've seen from him. I would have liked to seen after Michael Harris drove him in there to maybe try to steal a base and see if you can get another run across there. I want to see them use some of that speed a little bit more. You had Ramon Laureano got on earlier in the game, try to steal in that first inning, had it stolen, unfortunately was called back because of batter interference. That big backswing from Marzell Ozuna hits JT Realmuto. But I think you got to be more aggressive, especially in these games against good pitching. You got to be more aggressive on the base paths when you get a Michael Harris and a Whit Merrifield and Ramon Laureano on base. Look for more opportunities to run and try to make things happen there. So again, tough night for the offense, but you're facing some really good pitching. So overall, I thought it was a successful night with this lineup. Some key moments in this game. Talked about Lopez. He had trouble in the second and fourth innings in this one. Interestingly enough, it was against the middle and bottom of the order of the Phillies lineup. At the top of the order, he completely dominated, but he had bases loaded in the second, was able to get out of that. Had first and second, nobody out in the fourth after an 0-2 pitch that Alec Boehm hits into play and just bounces, in front of the plate into the air. There's just no chance to make a play there. And he limits that to just one run. Outside of that, not a lot of traffic against this Braves pitching staff on the night. For the offense, you had chances to add on in that eighth inning, in that ninth inning. You were able to push one across because Alvarado walked three. But again, love to see in those spots coming up with that big hit to kind of put the game away. They had those chances. They're late, didn't quite get that big hit, but were at least able to get that insurance run, which felt huge. Obviously, with Raisel Iglesias coming in, he's been so good, but he's had some troubles against the Phillies, but it's more so been against the guys at the top of that order. And, got to mention Ramon Laureano making some great catches in the bottom of the ninth inning to help Raisel Iglesias get that save. Know he's had his issues out there. And look, even those catches he made in the ninth kind of worried me a little bit. Those line drives, you saw Castellanos struggle with one of those line drives in that right field in Atlanta. We've seen other players struggle with that, but a basket catch too, so a couple of great running catches. So good stuff from Ramon Laureano, who's had his issues in the Braves outfield defensively, but those were certainly some good catches for him. And then he continues to stay hot at the plate. Had another hit in this one. So just a great game overall. Look, I'm a defensive first type of fan, so I certainly love these low scoring 3-1 games. And again, I think that's what you're going to get from this Braves team going forward. You're hopefully going to get great pitching. Your offense is going to get some timely hitting, get a big home run from Marzell Ozuna. I don't know that I mentioned that, but just a good, Marzell continues to get it done in clutch spots, come up big after looking bad in his first two at-bats. He comes back with a big home run to give the Braves a lead in this one. So much good stuff coming out of this one. The Braves able to get a close win against the Phillies on a night that the Mets lose as well. So you gain some ground there in the wild card. So, rough couple of days for the Atlanta Braves with the Austin Riley news, but a great win for this Braves team on Tuesday night. Next, we'll turn our attention to some negative. I had this plan before the Braves got a big win, but we're going to look at the Braves in clutch situations this year and just how this offense has struggled, or have they struggled as much as maybe you thought? We'll discuss that here next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win, just like the Braves did on Tuesday night. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast, where host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor and get you set up for the postseason. You can check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As far as what's coming your way the rest of the week here at Locked On Braves, tomorrow we'll have a podcast looking at obviously the rest of this Phillies series, letting you know what's going on around the league and looking at the postseason picture, where again, the Braves have a 2.5 game lead now on that final wild card spot. And then we'll have our mailbag episode later in the week as well. So get your questions ready for that. But I wanted to talk about the Braves struggles in clutch situations this year, because it just feels like they have been the worst in baseball in clutch situations. It feels like they get a runner in scoring position, they just can't get that big hit. Even tonight, it was a great win. You had chances to get some big hits with runners in scoring position late in this game to really pad the score and put the game away, and you just weren't able to come up with that big hit. And you look at FanGraphs and their definition of high leverage situations, the Braves are 25th with a WRC plus of 80. Now, to put that in perspective, the Phillies are actually behind the Braves in clutch situations, again, as defined by FanGraphs, with a WRC plus of 79. So, you can have that and still have a really good team. It's not advisable. But, I don't think that's the best indication of necessarily the Braves' success or failure offensively this year. Now, one thing I will point to is that the Braves have a 24.1% strikeout rate in those spots. That's 20th in baseball. I actually thought that would be worse. But again, you look at it from Fangraphs' high leverage situation standpoint, they're 25th in all of baseball in WRC plus, and they're 20th in strikeout rate in those situations. So not great, certainly bottom 10 in clutch situations, again, as defined by Fangraphs. Now, you look at more simplistically, runners in scoring position. The Braves are 21st in WRC plus at 99. So again, bottom 10. I actually thought that would be worse. To be quite honest with you, it feels like that's been worst. Now, again, we got to stop comparing this team to 2023, but I just need to give you some perspective of how far this offense has fallen. A lot of it due to regression, a lot of it most of it maybe due to some major injuries. But last year, this Braves team was 7th with a 116 WRC plus with runners in scoring position. So that's a big drop off. And again, here is the big one for me. They're 29th in strikeout rate with runners in scoring position at 25.6%. Last year, they were 5th in strikeout percentage with runners in scoring position at 19.3%. Again, let me repeat that one for you because I think this is the biggest thing. And I think it's what most fans see and realize when watching a game is just the number of strikeouts in big situations, whether it's a runner on third with less than 2 outs or just a runner in scoring position as what we're looking at now. The Braves are 29th. That's next to last. There's 30 teams in Major League Baseball. 29th in strikeout percentage at 25.6%. So nearly 27% of the time with a runner in scoring position, they are striking out. And look, sometimes the strikeout is better than putting the ball in play. We've seen the Braves hit into the most double plays by a wide margin over the last month. But you got a runner in scoring position. I feel like you got to find a way to put the bat on the ball and try to make something happen. And there's just been far too many strikeouts. And again, just a jump from last year, 19.3% strikeout rate with runners in scoring position last year, all the way up to 25.6%. And as I pointed out a couple of weeks ago, when we looked at the strikeout numbers for this Braves team, a lot of that's due to Jarred Kelenic and Adam Duvall, who have had to play a lot this year. And they both have a strikeout rate near 30%. Some of that's due to regression from Matt Olson, who's seen his strikeout rate go from 24 to 28%. But a lot of that is due to just some of the guys they've had in this lineup that they didn't have there last year. And some of it's regression. Acuna, before he got injured, his strikeout rate was back up around 22, 23%. But I think a lot of it is just due to some guys they really weren't expecting to have to use this year or to count on a lot. Maybe that's not necessarily the case for Kelenic. They were hoping, it was a guy that they could count on a lot. Now he's just been forced to play no matter what. But still, that is a big jump. And I think one of the biggest reasons why this team has struggled with runners in scoring positions is because when you strike out, 27% of the time in those situations, you're just not going to have as many opportunities for things to go your way. They've also had this was astounding when I saw this. They have the 4th fewest plate appearances with runners in scoring position. That, to me, is maybe even more concerning. The fact that this team just hasn't had a lot of opportunities with runners in scoring position. You're not getting a lot of base runners to second and third base. And I could not believe that when I had to look at it a couple times and looked at it on a couple different sites. They have the fourth fewest plate appearances with runners in scoring position. They had the 13th most last year. The fact that they are 9th in runs scored with runners in scoring position this year is actually pretty impressive, considering the number of chances. And I would not have thought that. I would assume that part of that is due to the fact that they have hit a lot of home runs. I know it was a slow start, but they really caught on in the second half. They have the 9th most runs scored with runners in scoring position, but again, the 4th fewest plate appearances. So imagine if they got that back up to, top 15 in plate appearances with runners in scoring position, where they, again, have already scored the 9th most runs, then we're probably looking at a different offense here. They're 18th in average with runners in scoring position at 251. Again, that's higher than I would have guessed. They're 24th in on-base percentage at 315. They just don't walk a lot. Last year, they were 10th in average with runners in scoring position at 266 and 9th in on-base percentage at 349. So that on-base percentage number way down. Again, I think part of that's the fact that they just don't have a lot of guys that will take their walks. This is the maddening thing about all this, and I know some of you don't want to hear about exit velocity, hard hit contact. I've read your comments. They have the hardest contact rate with runners in scoring position this year at 35.4%. They also were first to last year with runners in scoring position with a hard hit rate of 37.1%. Again, we talked about this other day, and I apologize, I forget the name of the account on social media who ran all the metrics that basically just proved with data how unlucky the Braves have been with hard hits this year. But again, from one year to the next, they have the hardest hit rate with runners in scoring position, but just the outcomes haven't been the same necessarily. And I think a lot of that, again, is due to the fact that, one, you just haven't had as many opportunities, and two, you're striking out 27% of the time in those situations. So again, still hitting the ball extremely hard when they do it, and when they have those chances, they just need more of those chances, and they need to stop striking out so much when they get those opportunities. You also look at it in 2-strike counts this year. It just feels like, again, this all points back to the strikeouts. But last year, it just felt like in 2-strike situations, they really turned things up and did a much better job of putting the ball in play. And you look at it this year in 2-strike counts, they're 22nd in strikeout percentage at 43.8%. Last year, it was 38.6%. So that's a pretty heavy increase. Obviously, anytime you get in 2-strike situations, your chances of striking out go up exponentially. But 38.6%, 43.8%, that's a pretty big jump. Last year, or this year rather, they are 20th in average at 168 in 2-strike counts and 20th in WRC plus. Last year, they had the second best average in 2-strike counts at 195. So again, last year, you can't keep comparing last year to this year, but it's all I can do right now. It just felt like it without even looking at the numbers that they got to 2 strikes last year. And I don't know if it was approach or not, but they certainly seemed to do a much better job in 2-strike counts last year of putting the ball in play, and it showed with their 195 average, which was the second best in baseball. No, that doesn't sound great, but your average really goes down in 2-strike counts, and this year that's dropped down all the way to 168. And again, we've talked about it all season long, just hasn't felt like there's been a great 2-strike approach for this team like we saw in 2023. And that's regardless of the injuries. I think that's been up and down the lineup. The approach in those situations just hasn't felt great. So again, has been a rough year in clutch situations. These numbers actually aren't quite as bad as I thought. Watching every game, it feels like they never come up in a clutch situation. But I think they have been one of the 10 worst teams this year with runners in scoring position in clutch situations. I think a lot of that is due to the fact that they don't get on base a lot, so you don't have as many chances because they don't take their walks, and you're just striking out way too much when you do get in those situations. So hopefully that's something that improves down the stretch here in this last month and a half for this Braves team, but it is something you definitely can look at this year that has really hurt this Braves team when they've gotten those opportunities and just not been able to put the ball in play, not being able to come up with that big hit to either take a lead or get back in the game or just put a game away. They just haven't done a great job of doing that all year long. But again, as we're all been hoping, that's hopefully going to change here down the stretch. And hopefully Max Fried is going to get back on track. It's been a rough stretch for him after the All-Star break. And now he gets to face this Phillies team who's looking to come out hungry after only scoring 1 run on Tuesday night. We'll discuss Max Fried and Wednesday's game here next. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. And now you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into $1,000. And right now, starting in the month of September, 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard from Caleb Williams, who I learned is the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. That gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Georgia and Alabama. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LockedOnMLB. You're going to get a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LockedOnMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We'll get to some of the news first before we preview Wednesday's matchup, but you got a good bit of news on Tuesday. We've discussed already Gio Urshela. We talked about him a lot on yesterday's podcast, and then I did a brief little short discussing it once it became official that the Braves signed him. They did sign him to a major league deal. The Tigers are on the hook for the remainder of his 2024 salary, which wasn't much to begin with. The Braves will only pay a prorated portion of the league minimum for however long he's with the team. That, according to Justin Toscana of the AJC. To make room for Gio Urshela, the Braves transferred AJ Minter to the 60-day IL. He is officially done for the season. Again, hate that for AJ Minter. They also placed Austin Riley on the 10-day IL, not officially done for the year, but again, most likely done for at least the regular season. Now, Joel Sherman, who also reported the Gio Urshela news, he reported that the Braves are going to play Yuli Gurriel at third base, some at Gwinnett in case he is needed there. We talked about Yuli Gurriel as a possible replacement yesterday, but he hasn't played a lot of third base. He is 40 years old, but he's hit really well at Gwinnett this year. So going to go ahead and work him in there just in case the Braves want to give him an opportunity there. Things maybe don't work out with Gio Urshela, and he did play there on Tuesday night for Gwinnett. I believe he was over 3 with a walk and a couple of strikeouts, but gives you some more options there for the Braves if they do want to go that route. Or like I said, if things just go disastrously for Gio Urshela, but certainly hoping that's not the case. Now, for Jorge Soler, was not in the lineup on Tuesday like we all were hoping. He did pinch hit in the game, drew a walk, and then was pinch ran for by Adam Duvall. Look, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here, but this is just why this move didn't make a lot of sense at the trade deadline. I love the bat. The bat is certainly a fit for what the Braves need, a guy that can get on base, has some big power, but is a DH. I mean, he hasn't played a lot of outfield lately, and now you put him out there, he pulls a hamstring, and look, it's great he can come back and maybe get some at-bats right now. But now when you bring him back, you have to make sure that he can play the field because there are no at-bats for him in the DH spot. You're not taking Marzell Ozuna, who's been your best hitter all year, out of that DH spot. So now Soler's dealing with a hamstring. Maybe he's well enough to hit, but he's not well enough to play in the field. And that's the only spot for him. So you really back yourself into a corner with this Jorge Soler move. And look, it can happen with any outfielder getting injured, but Soler in particular, who's not a great outfielder to begin with, hasn't played a lot of outfield over the last couple of years, really should be a DH only. And now you've got this guy who you owe a lot of money to. He's got a hamstring injury. You can only play him in the outfield, but you really do need his bat, and the Braves really could use his bat. I don't know when he's going to come back. Again, it's a good sign that he was at least able to hit in this game, but again, it speaks to the fact that trade just wasn't a great fit for what the Braves already had. Again, the bat was, and if he stays healthy, fine. But now you're dealing with a leg issue for a guy who probably should only be playing DH, but a guy that you have to play in the outfield. But again, good to see him at least back out there on the field, and until he's able to, or at least back out there at the plate, and until he's able to get back in the field, should be a good, solid bat for you off of the bench. But certainly that's not what the Braves are wanting with Jorge Soler. They want him at the top of that order each and every night. As far as the matchup on Wednesday, it's Aaron Nola versus Max Fried. Nola in his last 7 games, a 3.35 ERA, but a 1.51 whip. And only 35 strikeouts in 40 and a third innings, just 4 strikeouts in 5 of his last 6 outings, 3 walks in 3 of those 6, and 43 hits in 33 and 34 in a third innings. I don't know how he's gotten away with it over this stretch, but hopefully the Braves are able to get those base runners on and take advantage with some clutch hitting. Aaron Nola's the guy you have to get to him early. Otherwise, he kind of gets into a rhythm. Obviously, Braves are very familiar with him. He's very familiar with the Braves, but a guy that they can get to, and they have gotten to in the past, and hopefully that's going to be the case on a Wednesday. As for Max Fried, need to get him back on track. Look, it has not been great since his injury at the All-Star game. I thought he was better last time. I thought he's been better each time out, but got to get him back to being that Max Fried that's not walking everybody. 11 walks in his last 13 2/3 innings over his last 3 games. That is not typical Max Fried, and it really just is about command. The stuff looks good. The stuff looks sharp. Velocity is fine. It's really all just about him getting that command back. And if he does that, then we're going to get, the regular Max Fried back, the Cy Young contender in Max Fried. And again, we're looking for that on Wednesday. Really, it's his 4th start back now from that injury. Really want to see him get on track with that command, have a good game against the Phillies, hopefully go deep into the game. You did have to use, your bullpen a good bit on Tuesday to get that win. But just more importantly for the rest of this season, and who knows what happens with Max Fried after the season, but for the rest of this season, you really want to see Max Fried be that top of the rotation guy that we know he is and has been for most of the season, and really want to see that happen on Wednesday against the Phillies. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen today. Go check out the Locked On MLB podcast with Sully. Will he get you ready for the postseason? You can find that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, later this week, we'll discuss the rest of this Phillies series and get into what's going on around the league and the playoff picture and have our mailbag episode. The Braves and the Phillies play again at 7:20 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. It'll be Max Fried versus Aaron Nola. Catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Braves. That will do it for this episode again of Locked On Braves. Thanks for making us your first listen of each and every day. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you are new. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already so others can find us. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.